So in this video we're going to be looking at controlling the visibility of families or objects in families per view. And we're going to be using the level of detail controls as well as subcategories. As an example, we're going to be controlling a column's drop panel visibility per view. So over here in Revit, I've started a project, and what I did is I made a couple different views. So I've got one here showing the drop caps, and then I'm going to have another one that's just a copy of the same view, but in this one I intend not to show the drops and caps or capitals. You can see here that they're based on level 2 going down to level 1, and then you have a 3D view of them there as well. These views have all been dropped onto a sheet just for simplicity's sake. Okay, so I'm going to right click and activate this view right here. So these are the columns. Here's the column that we're going to be working on, and this column has a drop panel as well as a capital. That's why it says it's drop caps. So I'm just going to click on that family, and then I'm going to go to Edit Family. Okay, so that's going to pull up the column family with the drop panel and the capital. Both of those things right there, if you click on that object right here, that's a nested family. This one here is an object which is modeled right within this family. So this part and this part, they were modeled right here using the extrusion, whereas this drop family was modeled externally and then it was loaded into this particular file. So let's start with the level of detail. So in this view right here, I could click on the objects. I'll just click on that one, and I'll click on this one right here. I'll just hold down Control, pick them both. If I click on the visibility settings, we can control the level of detail. This is right here, so detail levels, and I can say those are not to be seen in anything other than a fine level of detail anywhere. We could say OK. If I load that back into the project, you're going to see what happens. I'm going to overwrite the existing version. So everywhere they've disappeared. So how do we show them in one view and then not show them in another view? Well, I'm just going to right click and deactivate the view. So on this view right here, I'm going to change its detail level to fine. Now you can see them. This view right here, let's change its visibility, its detail level to medium. See, you still don't see it because this one's fine. These objects are only available in fine now that we've changed that setting. If I pick on that view right there, I can do the same and say, no, I want to see it there and I want to see it here. This can be good, but usually this is for stuff that's sort of a finer level of detail. Like let's say, for instance, you wanted to show the base plate of a column. Then it might be something that's applicable. In this case, you generally always want to see the drop caps. You just want to be able to decide per view that maybe I don't want to see the drop and the caps. Okay, so we're going to go back into that family. We're going to go to View, switch windows, and then here's the family right here. So let's change that back. I'm going to click on that object there and that object there and go to the visibility settings. We're going to say, no, you can see those everywhere. Now what we're going to do is go into a floor plan. And we're going to go back into the visibility settings. But before we do that, I just want to set this view to wireframe so I can see the capital as well as the drop panel. I'm going to pick them both. And now in the same visibility settings button, I can choose to not show them in plan and reflected ceiling plan. Okay, so let me just say OK to that. Now I could have done that in the 3D view, that's fine. But the point is you have to click on them both and tell them under visibility settings, I don't want to be showing this in the plan or reflected ceiling plan. Okay, let's load that into the project. And there we go. Okay, so that went right into that particular view. Let's just close that view down. I'm going to go to View, switch windows, There it is right there. Okay, so you can see here, yes, it's showing in elevation, showing in 3D, but not in plan. But what if you wanted to show it here, but not here? Well, this is where we can get into something called subcategories. Subcategories are added on to the categories that are conventionally there. So for instance, if I activate this view right here, I go to the visibility graphics dialog box. I can access that just by typing VV. But notice what we have here. If you look under structural columns and I just expand that, these things here are subcategories. These are categories. You can't make different categories. Like I can't add or remove these. But I can add or remove the subcategories. How do you do that? Well, you do that inside of the family. So I'm just going to cancel this out. Let's go back to our family. So I'm going to switch windows, go to that floor plan. So we're going to leave this off in 3D. And one of the reasons for that is when I click on this object, that's a nested family. It does not have subcategory control in its properties. Okay, so you can click on an object, see its subcategory, and change it. So what we're going to do is make sure that the drop as well as the capital are turned off in plan. Okay, that one and that one, good, so they're not visible in plan. So before we actually draw something in representing the drop, let's make our subcategory. So if you go to Manage, Object Styles, I'm going to click on Modify Subcategories, New. We're going to call this Drop and Cap. OK. It's a subcategory of structural columns. I can change the line weight in projection, when it's cut, and the line pattern, or the default line pattern. We'll change it to hidden and say OK. Now when we draw an object, really any object, we'll be able to choose its subcategory. So I'm going to go to Annotate, Symbolic Line. Notice right here, subcategory. So right away I can pick the subcategory. I'm going to say this is the drop and cap when you cut the column. So cut. Then I'm going to draw a rectangle just right around where the drop is. Because those lines are drawn right to the reference planes, they'll automatically lock onto the ref plane. We'll check that just in case as well. Okay, so now we can load that back into the project, overwrite the existing version, and now they show up. But notice they show up in this view and that view. So what if I want to not show the drops there? Well, let's just deactivate this view. We're going to activate this view. And in here, I'm going to go to the visibility settings. That's VV. And I'm just going to go down to structural columns. Notice this, drop and cap. Let's just turn it right off. Okay, so in this view, they're turned off. In this view, they're turned on. So I'm just going to right click and deactivate the view. You don't want to go too crazy with subcategories. You don't want to turn this into almost like a layering scenario where everything is on separate subcategories and layers. But when you need the control, you'll know it and you'll be able to edit the family using subcategories.